Our stylish protagonist of P5 is once again back in the spotlight here, taking over the first slot and the start of our series, being the DPS rotation series. Outside the series, you guys are going to understand not only just about the character, the team they're going to end up using, as well as their options, and you're going to have, of course, the rotation that they need to work properly. This is going to at least assist you guys with knowing how this character does work, and I'm going to go ahead and do this with every last DPS that are currently in global all the way up to TW. So if you want to know anything about this game, of course, be sure to look forward to this series. I haven't really guessed what I want to name it just yet, but we're going to start off with Joker, the best of the best, and let's get straight into it. Getting straight down to the nitty gritty stuff here, the protagonist himself wields Arsene as a AoE curse dealer, and he's a very interesting one, to be honest. He was one of the first limiteds that ended up coming out into the game here, so obviously when it did come down to him, he's pretty darn good, and with his recent changes on TW, he actually ended up getting a lot better. So just to understand how this character does work, we're going to go over a few things first. Mainly looking at his skills, seeing that the skills are what's going to help you understand majority of his kit anyways to get the rotation down. So when it does come down to his skills here, he has Trickster's Plunder, Phantom Omen, as well as Arsene Chains. Normally you're going to only be using the skill 1 and the skill 3, seeing that he is a AoE DPS character. The skill 1 ends up dealing curse damage to all foes equal to 54.4% of attack and has a 20% chance to inflict curse. Now the cool part about this is going to be with its entire kit, it will give you 1 stack of Will of Rebellion. Well, what you need to know about these Will of Rebellion stacks here is when you get 3 of them, you end up getting an extra turn. You'll see a little bit of an extra thing pop up on the screen where he comes over the screen, shows his mask a little bit, and then he gets another turn here. In this said extra turn, his damage is increased with the skill 3, so usually you're going to be doing a easy skill 1, skill 3 fashion. The only time where you're going to end up changing this is if you were further down the line, but of course the rotation is a little bit more complex than that. So when it does come down to the skill 1, this is how you're going to really start it, mainly to build up your stacks. You're going to use this usually 2 times, and then you're going to end up leading into the skill 3 later down the line. Now the skill 3 itself is not exactly how the skill 1 works. In fact, the skill 3 itself does curse damage to all foes by 48.6%, but whenever you're on the extra action, you increase your damage by 25%. When attacking foes with said debuffs, you also increase your damage by 25%, really exploiting more of that curse factor. So the real thing that you guys got to pay attention to is this character really wants to be in its extra turn. The best way to do this is just by going ahead and stacking up the Will of Rebellion here that you get from the first skill. Now granted, you can get more of these said Will of Rebellion stacks depending on if you use like the highlight, so it obviously could stack a little bit quicker, and each of these stacks are going to help him out not only on the attack side but also in damage in general. So I mean, like, there are ways to get more of these Will of Rebellion stacks, but your normal way is going to be from that skill 1, allowing you to then go into your extraction and then taking advantage of your skill 3. So now we know this here, what are some other things that we got to pay attention to? Well, I ended up talking about the highlight briefly here, which the highlight does curse damage as we all expected. It is a AoE highlight, and it does of course Will of Rebellion, or gives us a Will of Rebellion when we do use this. So there's our third way of getting this said stack, which overall helps out his entire kit, where it comes down to getting the attack bonuses for each Will of Rebellion stack, or either just getting straight to our extra turn. So the real question is, how does this character function in battle? What is their rotation? Well, we're going to go ahead and snap on over to that real quick. Future Blade chiming on in here. Past Blade got a little bit too excited and was looking too far down on the bulletin board, where I was actually supposed to be sending you guys to the team section next. Now the team section is very important because this really goes about your whole rotation, and is mainly going to act on your said teammates, seeing that your DPS will always be at the background. This is going to go with personas, this is going to go with any of your units, and everything is pretty darn flexible. But depending on your team rates, it also will depend on how many times you can get your Will of Rebellion stacks, seeing that by using a highlight, you can get Will of Rebellion stacks. By going ahead and using Cord, obviously, she can trigger your highlight early, meaning you might get that stack even earlier. Or if you have a bunch of buffs and different things that allow your, your Joker to actually deal a lot more damage here, obviously, you'll probably get that stack even quicker, seeing that if the enemy is at 50% or lower health, you get an extra Will of Rebellion stack. This is something you do have to take into account, especially when it comes down to team building for Joker, but it is something that comes with fine tuning. If you want to take at least an advantage of this video here, one of the teams that I recommend the most is this one here. You got yourself a crit damage buffer, which is insanely worth it, where she also gives a little bit of attack percentage on her skill 2. We have a buffer that's helping us out with crit rate if it's a 1. It's also helping us out with the skill 2 being able to give us a decent bit of damage and proc our highlights, giving us more chances at Will of Rebellion. And then we have Wonder being that buffer or debuffer depending on whatever you're doing. Wonder himself can either use 3 different personas, being a 3-turner. If you don't believe that you're able to do this, you would end up having access to Marukunda. You would also have access to using our Alice, being that she does die for me, and this increases your curse damage overall. And then if you're using Dionysus, you have access to Rebellion and Terrakaja. Now, depending on what you're doing and what you're after here, you will adjust accordingly. But no matter what, I would say use Rebellion on Dionysus, and he has to be someplace in this rotation, no matter how you look at it. This is just one of the teams. Now, there are a few other teams that I could recommend here, and I'll probably give out 2 more immediately for you guys. So one of the other teams that I can go ahead and recommend on the off chance that you do not have Win Vast and you still want a crit damage buffer, you can end up using someone like Leon, being a 4-star, who is very, very helpful with this. Just like Win Vast, it doesn't matter if they go 1st or 2nd, just make sure that he's someplace in there and not taking the 3rd slot, seeing that we do want to make sure Cord keeps giving out this highlight. So on the off chance that you do have to do this, you now have your crit damage buffer, which is absolutely great, still working perfectly fine with this team. I think the only thing that might end up changing is maybe your Navi, but even in that regard, I still think that you should probably keep on our girl Futaba if you do have her. The only character that I would swap her with is probably Okeon or Rico. Then we have one last team that I think a lot of you guys are probably going to be using if you don't have Cord or if you don't have Win Vast here, and this is going to be the one with Marion. Now, Marion is very helpful as well because this gives you now a new sustain, in which, where did she go? I know I saw her down here. There she is. Marion is going to help out as well, seeing that she gives you a new sustain here, and this allows you to go ahead and make sure you're living. So it doesn't matter what you're doing here. If you do have the A1, it does help you out because then she gives a pin buff, but on the off chance that you don't, you still have a good healer. So you can go ahead and use your skill 2, skill 3 anytime, making sure everyone is healed up on the team. Wonder is now in the 2nd slot, and what is it called? Leon is in our 3rd slot, which is perfectly fine as well. Now, Leon himself, it doesn't matter anymore when it does come down to speed tuning. As long as everyone is going in front of Joker, you should be good, because now we have no one interfering in charging highlights, which is always a good thing here. But we're going to go ahead and do this for the video and just show the rotation for at least Cord here, and I'll actually show each rotation depending on the team that we just showed out today. So for now, Leon, you're gonna have to get out of here because we gotta swap in our other characters. But let's get into the battle. Lucky for us, using different teams is not really a huge problem here because Joker himself is pretty darn simplistic. With his rotation, everything is going to revolve around you getting your Will of Rebellion stacks here, which is affected on how much damage you can deal. But one of the first things that you do need to know is on Wonder, you need to make sure you do have the dagger, being the Ex Machina. Reasoning for this is because the Ex Machina, when paired with Alice, is going to go ahead and give you a curse buff by 34% for him himself, and it should be around like 13% here anyways when it comes down to every other character. This is going to go on all your units, making sure that Joker can deal the most damage as possible, allowing you to have a higher probability of getting your Will of Rebellion stacks. But we're in the game, we're using this team. Now I'm going to act like everyone is at a A0 amount, so we're going to do a lot of A0 related stuff. First turn here, if you know that you can get, of course, anything like a couple people to 50% here, then obviously you probably start with maybe a Terrakaja into Rebellion, or either you would start with something like this instead, where we're using Marukunda on the first turn, going into maybe, I would say, Die For Me or either Rebellion. It honestly depends on you. As long as you know your character the most, you can know exactly how you're going about this. For this specifically, let's say we're facing an AoE boss that we can't get to 50% pretty easily. I'm going to go ahead and recommend a lot of you guys to use Marukunda with certs, seeing that this is a lovely debuff that will help you deal the most damage. You would then go ahead and use your skill 3, getting up your crit damage as well, which is going to help you out. Afterwards, you would go ahead and use your skill 2, getting you up some lovely attack up and crit rate up, which is going to help you out. And then on the first turn, you would use your skill 1. This is going to lead you down a path of a 3-turn rotation. Reason why I say this is because if you cannot get the enemy to 50% at all in an AoE DPS or an AoE boss to 50%, obviously the 3-turn rotation has to take some time to get the real low rebellion stacks. So on this off chance here, you would just go ahead and use your skill 1, and that gives you 1 whole stack. Now this will lead, of course, everything going the way it needs to go here, and it's a little bit of a troublesome theory, but it can happen this way if you want a 3-turn rotation. On your second turn here, instead of using another debuff or anything like that, you can either swap to Alice for Die For Me, that gives you a lovely 2-turn buff, or you can go ahead and go to Dionysus. If you know you're going to trigger, obviously Dionysus is what's called your Will of Rebellion stack this turn, I would advise you guys to use Dionysus, because then you can go ahead and get your crit rate up, which is going to help you out quite a lot here. And 9 times out of 10, if you're using this team, you are going to have your Will of Rebellion stack immediately this turn, because on this turn, we're also going to be using Chord's skill 3. So we now go ahead and lead into our, our Rico Wind Vast here, and we would use our skill 2, allowing us to go ahead and get our attack up. So there was no need to use Terrakaja, because obviously since we're getting attack up from Chord already and attack up from our Wind Vast, Terrakaja is not really a necessary need here. But what we would go ahead and do is we would use Catchy Hook, which obviously won't let you deal this much damage, but still will help you out. So once this does happen, you've already taken down maybe the ads that's with the boss down to half health. If you haven't done this, it still will lead you to getting your Will of Rebellion stack, but instead of course being at like maybe 5 stacks like we are now, you would be at 2 immediately, because we hit the first round, we had 1, and then the second round, seeing we're not at half health of the boss at all yet, we would have only 2. So once we attack here, we will go ahead and use our skill 1, which will give us out. So once this does happen, us into our extra action. No matter what, as long as we're in our extra action, we will always use our skill 3 here, and this will be your go-to form of damage. So you would go ahead and use your skill 3, does a decent bit of damage off of it, which is going to be great. Now, since we already used our lovely debuff, we still have 1 turn of the debuff, so we don't have to go back to Cert this round. We also don't need to use our Dionysus because we use Rebellion. Since we have so much attack percentage, Terrakaja is good for us, but we don't really need it. So what we would end up trying to go ahead and do, seeing we're going to get some more damage off anyways this round, you would use Die For Me, which lasts for 2 whole turns and allows you to deal some decent damage this turn and the next turn itself. But I don't want to insta-kill this boss, so obviously we're not going to use this just to keep the, the whole presentation going. So we just use Die For Me. We would then use our same rotation as per usual, going back into the skill 3. Seeing that we have used our skill 2 on turn 1 here, we don't have to do it again because this is still on 1 whole turn. We just use Catchy Hook, so now we have to use our skill 1 with Chord, amplifying our crit rate. So as if we're using our skill 1 on Chord, boom, we use that, we get a crit rate up here, or at least a probable chance to hitting our crits even better, which is going to help us out. And we go back to doing the same thing with Joker. We already used our skill 3, we have 0 Will of Rebellion stacks. We're going to go ahead and use our skill 1, which obviously if the boss is at maybe half health at that point, using that is obviously going to allow you to get a second Will of Rebellion, getting you back to 2. Pretty simple, but it does remember you have to scale on depending on how much damage you're doing and the mob that you're dealing with. So persona returns and things like that are going to be a little different. But that's just for this team. Let's check out another one. Now this is presuming you don't have Wind Vast just yet or don't plan together, but you still do have Chord here. You're going to end up using Leon. You would do this the same way. You can honestly swap up the way you approached it, whether you feel like you killed too fast and such, but we're going to do this exactly the same way, on the premise that we can't get anything to 50%, seeing if we're facing a boss here, we still want to set up our debuff. So first turn, I would go ahead and use our Marukunda, getting a lovely debuff down, or at least a defense down on the enemy. Then afterwards, we would have our man, what is it called? Leon here. Now, Leon himself is very interesting. He is a crit damage buffer once you, of course, have more awarenesses on him, but he's primarily helping out your attack. So if you are using him for the attack side of things, you are going to do things a little bit differently. Now, both of his buffs are 2-turn buffs here, so it honestly depends on how you want to start this. Seeing for me, I don't usually use the Justice Barrier first, unless I'm playing with like Ryuji maybe, but I use Ultima Buster first. So we'll go ahead and have this on. Boom, use our skill 2, especially knowing that we're going to get our Will of Rebellion stacks from using core the next turn anyways, it would be very helpful. So this turn we're using our skill 2 once again, making sure we get some more crit rate and attack up here, or just crit damage. And then on our first turn, we will use our skill 1. Since we're fighting a boss, we only have 1 Will of Rebellion stack and the turn goes on. The boss hits us accordingly here. Obviously we take a little bit of damage, and then our return, or at least our turn, is going to come on back here. So if we go ahead and look back at our wonder, we're going to go ahead and use this, scene. We know our Will of Rebellion stack is going to happen this round. So we're going to use Rebellion immediately, getting up our crit rate. Then with Leon here, we're going to go ahead and use our Justice Barrier. And by doing so, this helps out our attack even more so while giving us a shield, which is always great. That's another different buff that we can get. And since we are using Catchy Hook this round, we should be on 2 Will of Rebellion stacks before we even attack on our second round. So we would do this immediately. Boom. Obviously, we have our 2 stacks. Once we do attack with our skill 1, that is our 3, leading us back into our extra turn. Once we go into the extra turn here, we're going to go ahead and use our skill 3, ending off whatever we can end, or dealing the amount of damage that we can deal, which is going to be great. That's usually how that's just going to go, and I'm just going to end it on that turn because really we just do the same thing over once again here and nothing truly does change. So let's go ahead and check out the third and final team. Now this is if you have no cord and you don't have anything else for Wind Vast here, so this is more likely going to be a sustaining type of team here. Instead of Wonder going first, it's perfectly fine to have at least our Minami going maybe second or maybe first, third, really doesn't matter. But no matter how this does go here, usually you're going to be using your Healing Grace the first round, or maybe skill 1 the first round, allowing you to obviously help yourself out. If you do have A1, using skill 2 the first round is always going to be the way to go, seeing you then get that lovely pin buff for overhealing. If you go ahead and don't have A1, you could use anything that you really want, just don't use the skill 3. So it's always going to be a skill 2 or skill 1 function. So on Wonder here, we're going to do this in a way that we know we're probably not going to get our what's called our Will of Rebellion stack, or our third one, on the second turn. We're usually going to get it on the third turn, seeing we can't proc a highlight unless we're able to force it ourselves. But let's say we want to do an extra buff, which we are going to do this game as well. So we're going to go ahead and put our Maracunda down. When our first highlight star does pop up, we'll end up buffing with our character rather than going ahead and doing anything else. Now, we're going to use our Ultima Buster first. Once this is on the 2-turn, and since this is a whole 3-turn team, obviously, things are going to be a little bit different. So let's do this the right way. We're going to use our skill 1, obviously get a decent hit off. Now, they're going to be very, very low, in which this is the only thing I hate about using using an A6 character here. But we'll use our skill 1, and obviously it will not just immediately put us at that 1 stack, right? So on the second turn, what you would end up doing is having your highlight. This is usually where your highlight is going to come into play here, and you can do a few things in order. You can either use our man Leon's highlight itself here, which lasts for 2 whole turns and gives you an attack buff, or what I would primarily do if I am on Dionysus, which I will wait it out firstly. So let's go ahead and heal everyone first. Let's say we took some damage. Boom. And what I would end up doing here is I would swap your persona straight to Dionysus. Main reason to do this is because these are going to be our damage phases, right? We're going to use our skill 1 once, and then we're going to obviously get into our Will of Rebellion mode the next round. So it's better to make sure we have our buffs in order. So to do this, we want to increase our party damage by 33% immediately with our Dionysus buff. This is going to last for 2 whole turns, as well as our Dionysus passive, which is going to be great for us. And we can go ahead and move on. Since we already used our Dionysus here and we already have our attack buffs, what we can do is prep for the next turn. So we're going to go ahead and use Die For Me. Die For Me is going to increase the curse damage taken, and it lasts for 2 whole turns, overlapping your buffs properly. Let's go ahead and use Justice Barrier, which also lasts for 2 whole turns, helping out our attack percentage. And then on this round, we're going to act as if we're smacking again with skill 1. I don't want to smack here because I do know that obviously we're going to get our Will Rebellion stacks, so it's probably not wise for us to hit them right now. But we now have our 2 stacks immediately. We're still facing this boss. He's not half health, so we ain't getting the additional ones here. But what ends up happening is this is going to be the turn where we deal most of our damage. So obviously, we're going to go ahead and use our skill 2. This is just going to help out any of our teammates that need to be healed. On this turn, we go ahead and swap back to someone else, or at least we swap back to Dionysus, seeing we have not done our Rebellion just yet. Proc off Rebellion, now we have all of our buffs in one area. We're going to go ahead and refresh our buff on Leon using Ultimate Buster. And if we go ahead and look at our Joker here, we can see all the buffs that we do have. Everything is overlapping properly with the Power of Friendship buff. We're obviously getting our crit rate, and this is going to be from just from our Rebellion here with the Rebellion stack. We have our attack up from getting up our attack percentage, which is great from Leon as well. We do have our Pierce rate buff, which is also amazing. We end up having every last buff that we've ended up applying, and we still do have the critical damage buff from our Dionysus as well. With the over curse buff, which is always going to be very, very helpful, seeing that we did put this the increased curse damage on them as well. So as you can see, they have the debuff and they still have Maracuda's debuff, so everything's now in play. So if we go ahead and use our skill 1, we should get all of these stacks that we do need here, in which, oh, well, I miscalculated, but we should have gotten it. So we should be in our extra turn per se right here, right? We're in our extra turn. This is where you go ahead and pop off either a highlight, which during this extra turn, you should be able to get your highlight again. So by doing so, you would end up shooting this out, getting more Will of Rebellion stacks, dealing more damage right before you use your skill 3, and then you would end up using your skill 3. So it's a very 3-turnish type of setup, but it does help you out, especially if you don't have cord or anything. But now we went over at least those 3 teams, let's talk more about personas. Lastly, we're getting to personas. Now, personas are where things get a little bit convoluted, much like the thing that we just ended up doing. But at the same time, I feel like that this is one of the few things that does make a huge difference. So let's go ahead and talk about them. So many of you guys do know, we're already using Ex Machina, so any curse persona really does work for that first slot here. Just make sure they do have the curse attribute. If they don't have it, then obviously you do have to change around. But we're not going to get too in-depth on that. So let's just talk about the personas that are generally going to be used for attack related buffs, which all of these are going to be ones that you guys can get at any period of time. Starting with the woman herself being Alice, she is an attack related buffer, and this is mainly going to come around with her passive. Her passive increases element accuracy, which is always going to be good, as well as increases the curse damage taken, but it also increases your attack percentage and element accuracy whenever we use a curse skill. Seeing that, of course, our main Joker is going to always use the curse related skills here, you are going to obviously get this off. Or if you do use with Wonder, because I think actually this is meant for Wonder himself, but don't quote me on that. If you use Wonder's curse skill, which is usually going to be the Die For Me tactic, you're obviously going to get this lovely 12.6% attack buff, which has a max of 3 stacks. So I mean, like, it could very well help you out. So this is going to be a lovely attack percentage buffer persona that a lot of you guys are going to look for. Next buffer that we want to go ahead and go over is going to be Jiko Kuten. Now, Jiko Kuten is another persona here in the gold area that is a very helpful attack percentage buffer. This attack percent buffer, it not only helps you out with defense, but after you use a skill on the main target, which is usually going to be a buffing skill itself here, you're then going to get an attack percent buff here that's going to be very, very helpful. Usually you're going to try to use Mataru Kaja, Teru Kaja, sometimes even Rebellion on this persona, so getting that buff off is going to be very, very easy. But those are the 2 personas that I do recommend. There are other ones such as like Komo Kuten here, but honestly, I don't use that persona all too much. I mainly just use Alice and Jiko Kuten, so I'm going to recommend those the most. As for more of your crit ones here, you do have a few type of suggestions that we can go over. One of the lower suggestions is probably going to be the Succubus. Now, Succubus is very helpful because it's like a makeshift Dionysus, which is going to help you out in the crit rate area here. Usually you're going to be getting this crit rate with the Rebellion that it does provide, but with its passive, it not only increases your attack percentage, but whenever you do use a skill, it increases the crit rate as well for one whole turn. So it is a heavily nerfed Dionysus if you're not at that point, but it still does help you out. So I mean, like, if you guys are still wanting to have that lovely crit buff, it does come in handy, especially if you are using Succubus. Then of course we have the Man of the Hour, which is going to be Dionysus, who is an insanely good persona as well. Now I kind of just lost track of them. I know I saw them, so I'm trying to exactly figure out what happened. There they are. Our Dionysus here, which is also a critical buffer as well. As we all know, it helps out with crit rates, and then whenever we are using a skill, it does increase our crit damage as well. So we're, no matter what, getting a crit rate and crit damage buff just by using this. And usually you can pair Terrakaja for an attack buff on him, or either use Rebellion itself to get even more crit rate off of this, which is going to be your go-to skill. So no matter what, Dionysus is the one that you want to go for. There is an additional persona that you very well could use, actually two of them that you very well could use. Ame no Uzume being another one that I could very well recommend. This is more of a persona that you can use in mid game if you don't want to use what's it called, Succubus, which is perfectly fine. But I gotta go find her. I wonder if he ever got her up, because this is not my account, this is my friend's account here, which it seems like he never ever used Ame. So wherever the heck she is kind of lost in the sauce. So just do know, Ame is another good one here that you can very well use. Here she is, that you can very well use, that I feel like a lot of you guys are very interested on doing, because she does help out with element accuracy, but alongside of this, she increases your crit rate. So look forward to using that as well. Then we get more into the debuffers, and I'll be utterly honest, there's only two debuffers I would very much so use currently. One of them being, of course, our man Vishnu, who is up here, and the only reason for this is because he does have a lot of defense shred, and he's able to not only help you out with the defense shred that he does provide. You can use Magarudyne, or you even just use Wind of Nirvana, which helps out on the defense shred itself. But by using this persona, it does help out your critical rate, so that's one thing that you can use. But other than Vishnu, you can use our go-to persona, which is the one that we were using earlier, being being Surt. Now Surt here, insanely good persona. Now they are a purple persona as well. The only downside is they're not really an early game persona, so I mean, like, it's going to take you some time to get them, but the main reason that we do use them is because of the defense shred that they do have as well. Just by going ahead and looking at Marukunda, which is the only thing that he really does possess, there's not many personas that are really good that will also possess this as well. So having Marukunda, it makes this persona insanely worth doing if you're looking for a defense shredder. So Vishnu helps a little bit with the crit rate while also helping out with defense shredding, so it kind of puts him in a good spot. But Surt itself is a very good one to just do an AoE debuff, which is absolutely awesome. And I wish they had the debuff icon here instead of the buff icon, but we move along with that. There are going to be future ones that you guys can get, much like the Chinese New Year, what's called persona as well. I keep forgetting its name. I think it's Nyan or something like that, but they're going to be very helpful. So I mean, like, in the future, you can look forward to that persona. But currently, those are all the personas I would very much so recommend here. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It really does help me out a lot. This was something a little bit different, and I am going to be refining it as I go, as the series does progress. So let me know if you enjoyed it. But till next time, peace out.